please. Good evening, everybody. My name is Councillor Katie Porrett, and I'm the Chair of the West Central Area Committee. I'd like to welcome you to this committee, which is taking place virtually this evening, and to any members of the public joining us and watching via the Council's YouTube channel. So the councillors present at this meeting are including Councillor Martinelli, who's the Vice Chair, Councillor Bick, Councillor Glassberg, Councillor Holloway, Councillor Nestor, Councillor Nessinger, Councillor Payne and Councillor Simon Smith from the City Council, and County Councillors Gay, Nessinger and Ray. Could any members advise me if they've received any apologies? No, so hopefully our other members will be joining us shortly. So the City Council officers present for this meeting are the Committee Manager, Claire Tunnicliffe, and the meeting presenter, Boris Herzog. So joined by the Community Engagement and Enforcement Manager, Wendy Johnson, who will be coming to the meeting later when her item is called. If anyone has any problems hearing during the meeting, please let me know or type something in the chat function. General reminder that area committees are run virtually, so we can't make official decisions, but we are able to discuss local issues. I'll welcome Councillor Simon Smith. The meeting is broadcast live via the Council's website, and public speakers are reminded that by speaking and appearing in this meeting, you are giving consent to being recorded. The meeting is automatically recorded as well, and it will be available on the Council's YouTube page. The process for each agenda item will be: the relevant officer will give a brief intro to their report. Councillors and members of the public participating in the meeting will be invited to speak in the chat function if they wish to ask a question or make a statement. The committee manager will check the Democratic Services inbox throughout the meeting to see if any further public questions have been received. For the comfort of councillors, officers and the public, I may choose to call short breaks during the proceedings. If councillors or officers require a break, please do let me know and I'll halt proceedings as soon as I can at the next opportunity. Moving on to item 2, could councillors please advise if they have any declarations of interest and which item their declaration relates to? I can't see anyone, so I'll take that there aren't any, but obviously you can raise them during the meeting if you need to. Agenda item 3. The notes of this meeting, 15th of June 2023, are attached to the agenda. If there are any concerns with those before I sign them off, please could members raise them now. Again, I'm taking that as a good sign. Thank you very much. I'll sign those off later. Moving to agenda item 4. Matters and actions arising, starting on page 13 of your pack of papers. So, I'd like to ask you to note the following updates. You can see from there, action 1 was relating to e-scooters and e-bikes, and that the signage we've requested is going up on Midsummer Common very shortly, and that will also be touched upon later in relation to a public question on this. Action 2 was looking at a power to enforce against engine idling. We haven't had a response for officers on that yet, but we will keep that therefore on the agenda and the action sheet for next time if that's okay with everybody. Action 3, again, relates to the police and CCTV. The police are attending the next West Central Area Committee in November, so I'm proposing to carry that forward to the November meeting so that we can have an update from police at that point. If that's agreeable to everybody. Yeah, thank you very much. Action 4, Jesus Green. I'm going to propose a meeting in October for that because it seemed a bit pointless doing a meeting in the middle of July and August when most of the residents and the ward councillors and indeed quite a few officers were on leave. So that will be taken forward and we should have some updates for you in November. And finally, item 5 about the Barton Greenway and item 6 about the Olem Corner Junction have been closed as I did the actions. And as you can see, I've forwarded the correspondence and links to the debate to the relevant officers. So those have hopefully been fed into their processes. Does anyone have any comments they wish to make? Or are you happy for me to move on to the next item? Excellent, thank you. I can see some nodding there. Okay, so we're moving on to item 5, which is the open forum. We've had a few questions in, one just recently, which we've actually move to the last item because it relates to the things that Wendy Johnson's going to speak to us about. The first question we've had is relating to e-cycles, and the next ones relate to the Darwin Green item, so I'm proposing to take those under that item, if that's agreeable to everybody. So, we've had a question in, which I think you should have all seen, but for the public record, I will read it out. This has been submitted by Valerie Cornish and Sarah Arthur, who are residents of Eden Street in the city centre. It says, could residents please be updated on the actions that the council and other bodies are taking on pedestrian safety in Fitzroy and Burley Street, as well as on nearby open spaces, particularly in areas where cycling is not permitted, but where e-scooters and e-bikes are witnessed using the space, sometimes at speed and without due care for other users of the pathways. So Claire, thank you very much, has already contacted officers, and we do have a response. Would you like me to read it, or you? Claire will now read out the response, and obviously happy to take any questions. Thanks, Claire.
The response is, the Council has led the establishment of a multi-agency partner steering group to look specifically at the current difficulties. This has met twice thus far and led to a number of enhancement actions, with a further meeting planned this autumn. Council officers have checked highway signing in Fitzroy and Burley Street and found that this accords with traffic restrictions in place. Some signs are, however, looking a little tired, so officers have flagged with County Council Highways colleagues the potential to enhance signs to make them more impactful. This might be considered via any further round of local highway improvements if local ward members are supportive of an application. The police have engaged closely with Roy and other micro-mobility providers and operators, including the fast food delivery sector, and stepped up patrols in Fitzroy and Burley Streets. Council officers have also had regular dialogue with Roy and the lead authority for that trial to ensure that riders are aware of where they can and shouldn't ride, and that suitable controls are in place around poor behaviour. The police are running an education campaign during October advising the public of the legalities around the use of e-scooters. On Midsummer Common, the Council proposes to introduce specific signage aimed at raising awareness and improving behaviour. The detail is now agreed with an order for the work placed, which it hoped will be completed before the end of October. On Christ Pieces, which is the only open green space in the area where cycling is prohibited, signing was upgraded in 2015. Officers have reviewed the legal basis for restrictions, which date back many decades, and concluded that, unfortunately, this is insufficient for direct enforcement action to be taken against offenders at the present time. Government have now indicated its intention to bring forward new legislation around micro-mobility that should help address many of the current difficulties. The Chief Executive is writing to the Department of Transport to encourage speedy attention to this.
Thank you very much, Claire. Does anyone have anything they want to contribute to this, which I know is a very regular occurrence at these committees, but rightly so, I think, because obviously there's an issue. Do put your hand up if you've got anything you'd like to say. Councillor Bick.
Well, Chair, I wanted to pick out something that Claire read out, but obviously I don't think it's going to go anywhere because we don't have an officer, the officer who wrote that present, but it does strike me as a little strange that despite prohibition notices on cycling at all entries and throughout Christ Pieces, that is not a basis for enforcement action. I don't really understand how that could be the case, but obviously I will follow that up outside this meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Bick. Finally, I'd underlined the same thing. We only got this this evening. I thought that's an interesting issue, and it's not one that's come to light before, as far as I'm aware. Would you like me to add that to the action points, either for you or for me to take forward? Yeah.
Yes, please.
If that's okay. I have had a couple more emails from residents in the Eden Street area who obviously, it is certainly an issue with people cycling up and down Fitzroy and Burley Street at speed when it isn't allowed, it's a very mixed area. You know, there's pedestrians, there's kids, there's dogs, there's bicycles, there's stalls. They had a couple of suggestions. One was that where we know there's a lot of delivery e-scooters coming, could the council look at some kind of parking bays so that they could at least, the delivery drivers could leave their scooters safely, pick up the thing and come back? And I mean, that to me seems like something worth exploring. If committee are happy for me to do that, we can ask officers about it. And they also were talking about having street markets, more market stalls in the Burley Street, Fitzroy Street area, just to try and bring it some vibrancy. So again, it's something I know. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that. No comments at all? Okay. I mean, certainly from my point of view, I think this is an important issue. So, and I think the signage is useful, but there is definitely a sort of a portion that needs to go to enforcement as well, because people are regularly ignoring the signs. So I would also propose, if agreeable, that we keep this action point, particularly about the enforcement, and bring it back to the next committee where we have the police there, so that we can actually get their comments. I know, obviously, there are issues with staffing in the police, but nonetheless, this is always a regular priority at area committee. So I think it would be useful to know what is being done and whether anything's changed since last one, if that's agreeable to everybody. Excellent. I'm getting some nods. Thank you very much. Can I just ask Claire to check the Democratic Services inbox, just in case we've had any extra ones in on that?
No questions, Chair.
No. Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to move now to item 6, which is an update on Darwin Green. Before we move to this item, we've actually got the report, which I'll take as read, that I think is in the papers, you should have all seen. We've had some questions in earlier this week, which Philippa Kelly and the planning team has answered. Unfortunately, we haven't got a planning officer here tonight, but happy to report back. I should also note, because this is in effect a part of a live planning application at the moment, because, for example, any permission to demolish will need to come back through the council, those of us who sit or reserve on planning committee will need to be careful that we don't fetter our discretion and be mindful of not expressing a view that could compromise that. So that includes myself as chair, so I will do my best to be neutral anyway, as I'm chair, Councillor Smith, Councillor Nestor and Councillor Nessinger, who are both reserves, and Councillor Smith and myself both sit on the committee. I don't think anyone else is on the committee, but please do flag if you are. So Claire and I, if it's helpful, will now read through the questions and the responses we've got, if that's useful. Okay. Claire will now start with the questions, and I'll read you back the responses. We've got 7 questions.
First question is, Chair, are there any further updates on when exactly demolition work will begin at the start of October? This seems quite ambitious.
So the planning team, building control, have replied. Before demolition work can commence, information has to be submitted to the council's building control and planning teams for approval. The approval process will take a number of weeks, and it is unlikely that a decision will be made before the end of October. Officers have made BDW, who are the developers and owners of that site, aware of this timeline.
Second question is, during the last public meeting, the demolition of 70 homes was mentioned, whereas previously the figure of 96 was referenced in June. What is the reasons for this difference?
Thanks, Claire. The discrepancy here relates to the variance in numbers that require a demolition notice, as Section 80 under the Buildings Act. Where there are properties with only limited construction work undertaking, i.e. just foundations, they do not require to be notified to building control. So that's why the numbers are different.
Third question is split into 3 parts. The first question of that is, will all of the new homes on phase 2 be built with piled foundations? B, are the homes on Franklin Gardens all built with piled foundations? And C, if so, should we be concerned on phase 1 that ours are not?
So just to explain to anyone in the public, this is being built out in phases. So you have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So obviously there are residents who may already be in properties, residents buying properties and properties that aren't even built yet. So that's the reference to phasing. So the reply from planning was for A, are all the phase 2 houses being built with piled foundations? BDW, the developer, have confirmed that they will be using NHBC, so that's a different organisation, as the building control body for phase 2. Therefore, 3C Building Control will not be able to confirm the foundation details. That would be the responsibility of their building control assessor. For B, about Franklin Gardens, BDW have advised that Franklin Gardens have piled foundations, and any queries on this should be referred back to BDW, the developer. Foundation designs, C, foundation designs are based on ground conditions, an assessment by a competent person. This may vary across sites depending on the results of any surveys undertaken. So that would be whether the residents should be concerned whether phase 1 might not be piled.
Question 4. Is there any news about when any of the retail units may open, as we still have no facilities at all on site?
The planning response is, it is understood that inquiries have been received regarding occupying some of the units on the recently completed local centre. But at present, residents have to travel to Eddington or Histon Road.
BDW seem not to be consulting with our local councillors as our elected representatives. Can anything be done about this? Otherwise, residents' views risk being misinterpreted or dismissed.
Thank you. The council has actively encouraged BDW to consult with local councillors and resident associations.
Question 6. Will we be issued with any safety advice when it comes to the demolition, e.g. will it be safe to leave windows open, advice for asthma sufferers, etc.?
The response is, potential amenity impacts will be assessed as part of the review of the information submitted to the local planning authority. The council is also encouraging BDW to provide updates to local residents about the demolition process via the website and letter drops to nearby residents.
Regarding the greenway opening between Darwin Green and Windsor Road, BDW proposing motion-activated lighting. I am a little uncomfortable with that. Does such light fit with whatever rules the council have about this, and in particular the planning conditions for DG?
The details of the proposed lighting, they say, will need to be submitted to the local planning authority for approval. So those are the 7 questions we've received and the answers, and I don't know if anyone would like to respond or ask another question. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for adding this item to the agenda. I think we all thought it was important given the scale of what's happened at Darwin Green, which is a highly unlikely event where homes have actually been built and need to be taken down. I really appreciate the fact that Councillor Porras, Chair, you've really pushed this item to be on the agenda tonight, but can I just raise, and I don't mean this as your fault, I know you've worked really hard, but it's very disappointing not to see any officers here to answer on this. I recognise they've answered the questions, but given the number that have been submitted, in my view, the purpose of this committee was that officers could then respond to follow-up questions. We've had some forums at Storys Field already, which have been much bigger forums, and in some ways, although they're helpful in one way, it's quite a difficult environment because it can be quite competitive. So my understanding of this evening was that some residents were quite looking forward to coming along to have a slightly more relaxed atmosphere, to be able to have their questions answered on this sort of smaller forum. And so I think it is quite disappointing that none of our officers have attended this evening, and it'd be helpful if that could be fed back. This is incredibly important to people's lives. People's life savings are at risk here, and it's a real shame the council hasn't stepped up to answer to that. BDW, to be frank, are causing, I think, all sorts of problems. They're currently not consulting with councillors at all. In fact, they've been quite rude and disparaging towards us, which is disappointing to say the least. And what it's leading to now is some things happening which, well, BDW have basically been let off the hook for things they should have delivered years and years ago, such as the lighting that was alluded to, but now have sort of getting away with doing it in a real lacklustre way, where what should have been a footpath that was open for walking and cycling about a year ago is now only going to be open until 7 a.m. in the morning and then from 6 p.m. in the evening, which defeats one of the main purposes, which is that it's a key route to the Mayfield Primary School. And as the questioner said, it's being presented in quite a way which is quite strange, with motion sensor lighting and I think big fencing along the side. So it's actually quite intimidating. So if I don't know what what we can do, Chair, but I really feel the council should be putting all of its weight behind pushing this issue with BDW, who have been appalling. And if there's any way the committee willing to register their wish for them to listen to all residents and consult properly with residents and elected councillors, I think we'd really appreciate that.
Thank you,
Sorry for the
Councillor
rant.
Payne. Thank you, Councillor Payne. We can certainly report that back to officers. What I have suggested, as no one was able to attend, is that I will do what I did with some of the other actions and send them the link to the live stream so they can hear the debate as well as the questions. In terms of the committee taking a view as to whether we want to go back and remind the council to push hard, those of us on JDCC, the planning committee, will sit back, but I'm happy to take views from other councillors. I appreciate it's not all in your ward, but obviously if any of the rest of you are happy to support Councillor Payne, I'm very happy to report that back. I can see some, I don't see anyone objecting, I can see some nodding. Oh, Councillor Holloway.
Yeah, just to say I'd be very happy to support that. I think it's disgraceful what's happened, and we need them to now be apologising and be humble about the mistakes they've made and accountable to councillors and residents.
Thank you very much. I know that I can see nodding, I think, from the members of the committee who aren't in the position where they can't take a view. So I'm very happy for that to be added to the minutes and reported back to officers. Does anyone else have anything they wish to add at this point? No, and we don't have anyone we don't have any residents. Unfortunately, they weren't able to attend the meeting tonight, so they will be sent the link so they can catch. Oh, Councillor Nestor.
Yes, the residents do have the link, and I really hope that they are watching live as as all the 7 questions posed. So I just wanted to highlight that I would say many of them will be watching or will be watching later on of the recording. So yeah, they are aware the meeting is taking place, and as Councillor Payne said, they were looking forward to some of the the questions being answered. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm happy to minute that. I'm happy to put in action that those on this committee who weren't on JDCC were happy to ask. And I mean, I'm very happy to extend an invitation to the developers if they wish to come and talk to us, and equally to planning committee if we have further questions on this at later committees, which I suspect we may well do. So I'm taking that as okay. Everybody's finished. So we're just waiting for Wendy Johnson to join the meeting. She's a little bit delayed. I think we're running a little ahead of where we thought we were. So I don't know if anyone else has anything else they want to discuss, any other questions. If not, we'll just take a short break for 5-10 minutes until we can attend to get Wendy into the meeting. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to raise before we get on to the environmental reports? No? Everyone's very quiet tonight. Okay, what I propose, if it's agreeable, shall we take a break until about 7:05? I know it's a bit early for taking a break, but I think you can go and get a cup of tea and bring it back, and then we'll move to the environmental report, hopefully very shortly after that. Okay? We'll take off the live stream and we'll see you in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to West Central Area Committee. We're just moving on to the final item on the agenda. We are just waiting for an officer to attend as we're running slightly earlier than planned, but we do have a public question on the subject which has already been passed to the officer from Penny, who's kindly joined us in the meeting. Penny, are you okay to read out your question, please? Hi, Penny. We can see you now. You're very welcome to go ahead. Oh, you're just muted at the moment. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Sorry, I disappeared. Yeah, it was a question about street cleaning for Burrells Walk, Adams Road, Wilberforce Road, Sylvester, Herschel in this North Newnham area, and particularly pavements, gullies, gutters and railings, and all those awful plastic ties and posters that people abandon on Burrells Walk. But which authority, which department, and what is the yearly schedule? And I mentioned Burrells Walk especially to double check, as it's a pathway that seems to fall between the county authority and the city authority. In the last year, someone from the neighbourhood usually has to email to ask it to be cleaned. It's never proactive. We have to wait for the leaf litter sludge to be slippy and bad enough to complain. And how can we improve that? And if I can just add a little bit additional context, this area around here, it's based, there's a lot of development going on here in college maintenance, and our roads are like a building compound parking site. We get lots of, deliveries and drivers, and the people are pretty good, and the site managers do, keep an eye on all their work teams coming in. But as a neighbourhood, a lot of us locals have to go and litter pick frequently. It's really bad around Wilberforce and Adams Road. And Robinson College, they live up to their name with bins. They just have bins and cones all over their buildings and around the roads. But yeah, just really, how can we? It's very hard to find out who to call. How do we find out the useful numbers to get Burrells Walk and areas cleaned a bit more easily?
Thank you very much. We don't have our officer here yet, but I don't know if any of the ward councillors want to add anything, if they're aware of the problem, or whether they've had any issues they've dealt with themselves relating to this, either in Newnham or elsewhere. Councillor Nessinger.
I can probably help a bit who's responsible, which is that street cleaning and litter picking and cleaning, kind of taking down of notices are all City Council. The county is responsible for cleaning gullies underground. There's this kind of bonkers division between city responsible above ground and county below ground. Really helpful. I think that in terms of who to contact at the city, I can't quite answer that because I think that the teams have changed quite a lot. But Wendy Lansdowne, who will be here later, is probably a good person to try because she would at least know who the right person would be, even if it's not her.
Thank you, Councillor Nessinger. And Councillor Holloway, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just on the street cleaning, there is a form on the City Council website. I mean, when you or others have asked me in the past, that's what I've done. I just go and fill out the form on the website, and that's probably the quickest way, to be honest.
Could I just add that?
Go ahead.
I think people do email, and the trouble is no one seems to reply. It just doesn't happen. I think it's a sort of post-COVID hang-up. People just do not reply, so you always feel you're left in the ether. I don't know whether that's a cultural, people are too busy, but it would really help if there was just one sheet of A4 with useful numbers, telephone number, name, and an email, instead of having to dig out obscure emails from websites that seem to go out of date and that don't give an answer.
Thank you very much.
Happy to step one up.
There are some key contacts listed at the end of Wendy's report just for those kind of general issues. From what you're saying as well, it sounds like you're kind of requesting for it to be added to a more regular, clean anyway, which I've had some success in my area. We had an area in Newtown that was kind of having a lot of problem with leaf fall and things, and I did ask officers to add it to their sort of twice yearly cleaning schedule. I think that has happened, so I think that is definitely possible to do, as you say, because it seems a bit sensible to have it done regularly rather than sort of more reactively. Sorry, Councillor Glassberg, go ahead.
Yes, thanks for telling us about this, Penny. I hadn't realised that there was this kind of problem in that area. People have contacted me about this in other areas, and if filling in the form has not worked, I have found that the officers have been incredibly responsive when I've contacted them. So if you're still having a problem with it, if you fill the form in and there's no answer, just get in touch with me and I will try and follow up on it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Penny, do you have anything you want to add?
No, that's lovely, and I look forward to some just making it a bit easy for everyone. Thank you very much.
I did want to say as well, actually, relating to the construction issues, most planning consents will have conditions that restrict where contractors can park and, you know, muck on the roads and cleaning. So again, we've had an issue in my ward where I think it was there were some issues with contractor parking, and that I raised it through the planning conditions and it was addressed. And I also raised it through the county enforcement sort of officers and traffic wardens, who then did go and make sure that if people, we had some bays that were suspended, but then seemed to be getting rather full up with cars from the contractors. So again, there will be conditions with planning that will control any development. So if you think they're not being upheld, you can look on the Greater Cambridge Planning Service website, and there's a thing about sort of enforcement where you can report it and say, please can you check that this is being complied with, and normally that will result in them contacting the developer or contractor and just saying, can they be mindful? And that again has been successful when I've done that previously.
Very relevant. Thank you. Very good tip. Thank you.
And you mentioned bins. As everybody probably knows, the bins are changing next week. We're going to a new schedule of bins, so any residents watching, please do remember to check. Everyone, I think, in the city has had a letter about it and confirming their new day, but the routes are being rearranged. With the plus that there's no longer Monday collections. That means you don't have to change your bin day after the bank holiday, which I personally am quite pleased about because I always forget. So as Wendy's not here yet, what I suggest we do is we're going to move on to her report anyway. I'm taking it as read that you've all seen it. For anyone watching, it is available on the West Central Area Committee website. So I don't know if anyone has any questions they want to raise, and when Wendy joins us, I will feed them back to her for a response. Is it helpful to go through by ward? I think we start with Castle, if I'm right. We do. Do any of the Castle ward councillors want to raise anything here? Either we've got the community engagement team and the enforcement team, and obviously the operations, as well as some quite helpful maps about fly tipping and problems in each ward. Oh, I beg your pardon, Wendy has now joined us, actually, I think. Welcome, Wendy.
Apologies, Chair. I had some connection issues, as always is the way.
No, don't worry. We've just taken the public question, and and various councillors have been very helpful in responding. So I don't know if you want to review that at all. It was about whether street cleaning schedules could be amended for Burrells Walk, Adams Road, Wilberforce Road, Sylvester and Herschel roads, partly because the residents seem to be having to report sort of reactively when gullies get filled and things. So they were just checking who they can ask to make sure that actually gets put on as a regular clean.
Yeah. So in the report, you should have contact details of your operations supervisor, Mark Yeardsley. Mark is the point of contact for all 3 wards. So if there are any particular cleansing issues, you can contact Mark. Or alternatively, you should also have contact details for the operations manager, Paul Jones. Either of those 2 are useful points of contact in the first instance, or failing all else, I'm more than happy to liaise with them to work out the same office, and I'm happy to take anything like that away back to them.
Thank you very much. And Penny, I think, is still with us. Is there anything else you wanted to ask Wendy, Penny, or is that okay?
No, I think really, again, useful name and number, and great, will go onto my useful number list. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I was literally about to start your report, so I will hand over to you, Wendy, who's much better qualified than me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I think there are just a few bits I'd like to highlight in the report about the positive work that we've done over the last year. I particularly wanted to draw your attention to the number of corporate volunteering groups we've had and the real quality of work that we've been able to deliver. So in Castle, we've done an awful lot of work at Shensham Burial Ground. We were working with the management plan, and we've had, I think it was 2 groups in there, and we've got another group planned in to go in and undertake the work. That's a lot of work that wouldn't get done otherwise without their support, and that's been really positive to see. And in fact, the site, it was looking really nice last time we took a visit there. In the Market Ward, we've done quite a lot of work with groups again. We've mainly focused on Parker's Piece, Jesus Green and Christ Piece. And again, we've done a variety of work over the 6-month period. You'll see from some of the pictures, we were able to paint one of the toilet blocks, which had a lovely coat of paint and made it look really refreshing and a bit more welcoming, maybe as much as toilets can be. We also did quite a lot of litter picks, and the groups generally have been going around doing what we call tree care, which is when they'll cut all the sort of the saplings that are growing from the base of the roots and out the sides of the trees, and are not great for the trees' growth. But also we've been able to do a lot of bench renovations as well to make those tidier and keep them maintained in a well good order. And then we also had some groups as well in Newnham, particularly working around Queen's Green is the more recent group we've had. And they cut back a lot of the saplings and started some work there as well. And we also had quite a few litter picks across the wards as part of the Great British Spring Clean. That is obviously back in March, April time now, and that's an annual campaign we do. We had quite a few volunteers joining us for that. I think the other thing to draw your attention to, which is on page 18 of the report, is the fly tipping figures. So we've noted that the fly tipping figures for the Market Ward compared to the same period in the previous year have almost tripled really, where the other 2 wards have remained consistent. This is primarily due to commercial waste being dumped. It is not so much residential waste. My officers are reporting that there's large volumes of commercial waste being dumped, but there's no evidence linking it back to who's responsible. So what we are doing is picking up the patrols and increasing those at some of the key pivotal times, which is early in the mornings when waste is obviously presented before people get into the city centre. So we're hoping to have some impact on that in coming months. But that's the figure where it's coming from. It's not due to residential. We don't think there's any increase in the residential fly tipping across the ward. And then I think that's a few of the key points I wanted to draw your attention to. I'm really happy to take any questions or comments, Chair.
Thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you to the volunteers who've been helping out, because I certainly, on the spaces in my ward, you can see that has made a difference. So can I ask if anyone has any questions, please? Councillor Bick.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Wendy, for all that you've been organising here. I mean, one thing that I think does need a bit of a priority, I'm speaking for the city centre, but I could be saying something that's relevant elsewhere as well, is that an awful lot of the waste bins have become really dirty through the summer use and overuse in some respects. It just seems at this time of the year that there should be some sort of plan to clean them on the external part, and I just wanted some reassurance that that's something that can be envisaged, because it would just be a shame if the bins themselves became kind of tacky to use.
Thanks, Councillor Bick. Wendy, do you want to respond, or do you want me to collect some questions up for you?
I'm happy to take a collection of questions, Chair.
Okay, fantastic. I think that Councillor Messinger is next.
Thank you, Wendy, and also add my thanks to the the volunteers who've been doing really excellent things. 2 quick thoughts, really. One is I don't see that the area at the edge of Grantchester Meadows as it comes into Newnham is marked as one of your hotspots. I don't know whether that's because there hasn't been concern about it or just because people haven't been out there looking. So it would be useful to know whether that's somewhere that is regularly visited, because I know that there has certainly been some concern about that area. The other thing is your community engagement teams. I don't know how. The other area where I think there's been some worries in Newnham is around the canoe club, and I don't know whether that's come up on any of your as a concern, or I think that the issues that I've had raised in that area have been as much about the behaviour of people as they have about the litter, and I don't know whether your community engagement team are involved with being around when there might be antisocial behaviour in any way, or whether your community engagement only applies to encouraging people to help with clearing back shrubs and things.
Thanks, Councillor Nessinger. And then it's Councillor Payne, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. I've had a couple of requests from other groups of residents in Castle whether they can help with litter pickings, like the Rotary Club are interested in helping on Histon Road Rec. But I think what they would need to sort of help them with that is just some equipment, litter pickers, and someone to kind of collect it at the end. Is there a process to support that through the council, and who should we get in touch with?
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. And finally, I think Councillor Nestor. Thanks. And then we'll go back to Wendy.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you actually very much to the Open Spaces team and Councillor Payne. We did actually organise litter picket just at the start of the summer at Histon Rec. So just I wanted to acknowledge that the team has been just fantastic and very, very accommodating as well. And yes, I do have the contacts, Councillor Payne, if you wanted to as well, who to reach. So.
Thank you very much. Wendy, I'll hand back to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so Councillor Bick, in terms of the bin cleansing programme, it's not something I'm able to answer tonight because it's not my area of expertise at all. I do know the operations team have various different programmed work. So what I'll do is, if that's okay, I'll take that as an action point to come back to you about what works are programmed, where they might be programmed and when, so that I can give you some more specifics rather than just kind of try and provide a vague answer tonight. And I'll make that an action point to come back to you. The people I need to speak to, unfortunately, are off on leave at the moment as well. So they'll be back next week. Councillor Nessinger, in terms of the Grantchester Meadows, I'm not sure, hotspot, I'm assuming for like kind of litter, fly tipping, that kind of sort of environmental crime. It's not something that I'm aware of, but I will certainly flag it. We have two officers that cover that area. When they obviously cover Lammas Land and Cofen as part of their patrols, I'll ask them to make sure that they include that when they're patrolling, because not only do they have the ability to pick up, sort of small scale fly tipping or rubbish, but they also obviously can tackle any evidence or any sort of, if there's kind of people travelling to the site to dump waste as well, so they can deal with that all at once. So I will flag that with them as an area to include on their routine patrols. In terms of the canoe club, it's not something that's on my radar that's been raised. The community engagement team wouldn't necessarily be the point of contact. It's more our enforcement team, because if littering is the behaviour that's being caused, we kind of need to sort of identify when it's happening, particular days or times, so they can target their patrols and speak to them. But again, I will raise it with the area officers and perhaps ask them to pay a visit when they're working and when the clubs, when it coincides, so that we can speak to them about the behaviour and see they might need some support with, if they want to take part in litter picking or whatever. Sometimes we get that from groups.
I just want to be clear that I wasn't saying that the canoe club themselves were a problem, just that there have been issues with the behaviour of people who are near the canoe club, not that the canoe club have caused any issues.
Okay. Apologies, my misunderstanding. But I think maybe it sounds like it might be worth us speaking directly to the canoe club to understand if they're having this behaviour near to them, whether they've noticed anything or anything we can sort of support them with in terms of littering and that sort of behaviour, and that might involve working with our community safety team as well. Councillor Payne, we do actually have a new booking system for litter picking equipment. We do have hundreds of litter pickers and all the different equipment that can be used, and I know Councillor Nestor has borrowed that equipment for litter picking. Basically, if you go onto our volunteer litter picking webpage, there's a new web form you can fill in. All the information on there is we just need to know a date, when you'd like to collect it and pick it up, and how many kits you want, because we have both adults and children's kits, and we are more than happy to loan them out. We just need to make sure that we don't book everything on the same day. And I think that's everything so far, Chair.
Thanks so much, Wendy. I see we've got a question from Councillor Glassberg. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, to say about the Grantchester Meadows issue. I don't think it's so much, well, I haven't heard that it's about fly tipping there, but I think there's a real problem that, especially at weekends, there's a huge amount of litter accumulates there, because obviously there's hundreds of people going there, and it just needs to have more regular collections on hot weekends, I think. And in fact, I did flag that up with the officer and he sent someone straight away the next morning. So it did work, but I just think that they need to be aware of this and build it into the programme, really.
Thank you. Wendy, did you want to come back on that, or is that okay?
That's very helpful, Councillor. Thank you. I'll certainly speak to them and make sure we look at the programme and frequency, because like you say, maybe that needs to be addressed. So I'll take that away as an action point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had a couple of questions, if that's all right. I was waiting for everyone else to go first. So the commercial waste issue is quite worrying, particularly Market Ward. Are we linking up with the CCTV that I know the police have in those areas? Because I know actually that's on the actions to come back from a query from last area committee. So if you would like us to add that, to ask the police next time to clarify how that could be shared. Because I'm mindful that I'm pretty sure at some of the spots you've mentioned, we must have CCTV surveillance. I also noticed the number of needles seems to be increasing, or needle pickups is increasing right across all of the wards. I mean, it's always a particular issue in Market, but I think actually, in fact, yes, most apart from Newnham, Castle as well. And also, I noticed you made mention of the Section 47 notice. Could you just remind the public what that is? And it's obviously good that we've got some in force, because I think that means we're making sure that businesses are behaving themselves. But if you're just able to clarify that, that would be brilliant. Thank you. And I think Councillor Martinelli, is it okay if he has a question as well, Wendy, and then take them both? Thanks, go ahead.
Yeah, all I was going to say is just I thought the needles, and it's difficult because we've only got the 2 years of data. My recollection is the needles used to be way higher than this, like triple figures sometimes. So I felt like that was a big improvement on things. So grateful for any further info on that.
Thanks. Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, we do actually, so the enforcement team actually have CAMBAC radios, so they link directly through to the CCTV control room if they need assistance. And we also are able to request footage, or request the operatives to review the footage. I think the problem is we don't know when stuff is happening, so we might come out, first thing in the morning, and it could have happened at any time that night. Whether the operatives are able to review and find the footage is another thing. So we are able to request it if we have any kind of indication there is footage available. So that is something we're looking at. We do actually also have 6 redeployable cameras now for fly tipping and waste crime. The one we've got in the city centre at the moment is deployed at Milton's Walk. Because that's one of our hotspot areas, between the trade bin areas, kind of where you come in. That's a real hotspot area. So we have a camera up there at the moment, but they are available for us to use for anything related to fly tipping or waste crime. The needle numbers, I think I would agree with Councillor Martinelli. The numbers are, although they look high, sort of the incidences are quite low. Again, I think when you look at the fact that in February, some of them were from sort of Willow Walk area. Obviously, Willow Walk is now subsequently closed, so there may have been some sort of associated incidents that are no longer relevant. Just to advise that every single needle report the council gets where there's a needle found goes through to a series of partners that day or the next working day. That includes the police, all of the needle teams, all of the outreach teams. So everyone is notified about the needles, and if they are sleep sites or sites of interest, then all the intelligence is passed on, and that's also reported monthly as well through to the team. So they do have access to that data to use for the purposes of reducing numbers. And the Section 47 notices, those are notices that are served on businesses, stipulating how they must manage, control and present their waste for collection. So will it include things like how many bins they have, where they must put them, what times they must be out. It's to alert them and their staff to the fact there is a statutory requirement once the notice is served, and that failure to comply with that is a fixed penalty or prosecution offence. So it's to help them understand their requirements and the importance of adhering to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Wendy. And certainly if people do find trade bins that are not being managed, we've had some in our ward where officers have sort of issued a Section 47 and with some success it has dealt with the problem. So again, I'd urge anyone watching, if they have a problem, let Wendy's team know or let your ward councillors know. I can't see any more questions. Does anyone else have anything they wish to raise on this item? No, I can't see any more. Claire, could I just ask you to check the Democratic Services inbox and just see if we have any more questions submitted? No questions submitted. So I think that brings us to the end of West Central Area Committee tonight. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for Wendy for attending and to Penny as well, and to those who submitted questions. The next West Central Area Committee is scheduled for the 16th of November 2023, and we have various items that were carried over from the action sheet, particularly relating to the police coming along. So please ensure you have that date in your diary. And I will now ask Boris just to terminate the live stream. Thank you very much to everyone watching.